Hello, everybody. So, me again. Ta-da! Big surprise. So, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm on a drive. Started my drive in Dallas. Driving up to Toledo, Ohio. And stayed in Nashville last night. We'll complete my drive today, but right now I'm in Louisville. At the Zachary National Cemetery. And I'm sitting right now just I don't know, 30, 40, 50 feet away from where the 12th president of the United States and his wife are buried, right there behind me, that little mausoleum thing. Zachary Taylor. He's back there. I'll put up some pictures that I took. It's pretty cool shots from the front of it, and then that monument that's there. Got some pictures from all around that, and this whole section right here is where is a family section, the Taylor part of the cemetery. A lot of his family's buried here, so they turned this thing into a national cemetery, and the national cemetery takes care of the national cemetery, which is not very big, but they also take care of the Taylor plots that are back here that are not really part of the national cemetery, but there's nothing stopping you. It's open to the public, so you can come in here. Anyway, so I've never played in Kentucky, so this is going to be my first time playing Kentucky. I've been to Kentucky before, passed through Kentucky, but never played taps here, so this is going to be my first time to do that. So this will be my 33rd, trying to get all 50 states. That's what I'm working on. And this will be state number 33, and I'll add to the list, so getting there. I'm getting there. Anyway, I was going to read a little bit to you. Printed some of this off back in Dallas because I knew I was going to stop here. So I was going to read a little bit to you about, just a little bit about Zachary Taylor. You don't know that much about him. He was born November 24th, 1784. He died July 9th, 1850. He was an American military officer and politician, 12th president of the United States. He served from 1849 until his death in 1850. He was a career officer in the United States Army. He served 38 years, I think, in the Army. He rose to the rank of Major General and became a national hero for his victories in the Mexican-American War. As a result, he won an election to the White House, despite his vague political beliefs. His top priority as president was to preserve the Union. He died 16 months into his term from a stomach disease. He had the third shortest presidential term in history. He was born into a prominent family of plantation owners. They moved west from Virginia to Louisville, Kentucky, where we're at now, in his youth. He was the last president born before the Constitution of the United States was adopted. Commissioned as an officer in the Army in 1808, and made a name for himself as a captain in the War of 1812. There's some insignia on the front of that crypt over here where he and his wife are buried. You can actually see inside. There's windows on it. You can see inside and see where the two vaults are at, where their bodies lie at rest. Anyway, there's some insignia on that building for commemorating his service in the War of 1812. He climbed the ranks of the military, establishing military forts along the Mississippi River and entering the Black Hawk War as a colonel in 1832. His success in the Second Seminole War attracted national attention, and earn him the nickname Old Rough and Ready. Y'all heard that before? I've heard that. I think probably high school during the U.S. history. 1845, during the annexation of Texas, President James K. Polk dispatched Taylor to the Rio Grande in anticipation of a battle with Mexico over the disputed Texas-Mexico border. The Mexican-American War broke out in April 1846, and Taylor defeated Mexican troops commanded by General Mariano Arista at the battles of Palo Alto and Resaca de la Palma, driving Arista's troops out of Texas. Taylor then led his troops into Mexico, where they defeated Mexican troops commanded by Pedro de Ampudia at the Battle of Monterrey. Defying orders, Taylor led his troops further south, and though severely outnumbered, repelled Mexican forces under General, listen to this, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. Where have you heard that name before? If you're from Texas, you know that one. At the Battle of Buena Vista, forcing withdrawal but without a clear-cut victory. Taylor's troops were transferred to the command of Major General Winfield Scott, but Taylor retained his popularity. So he was down there fighting Santa Anna, and Santa Anna was at the Battle of the Alamo in 1836. That's when that happened. So 10 years later, General Zachary Taylor was down there with his troops fighting Santa Anna and his troops. Anyway, what else here? Taylor died suddenly of a stomach disease on July 9th, 1850, with his administration having accomplished little aside from the ratification of the Clayton-Bulwer Treaty and having made no progress on the most divisive issue in Congress and the nation, slavery. Vice President Fillmore assumed the presidency and served the remainder of his term. Historians and scholars have ranked Taylor in the bottom quarter of U.S. presidents, owing in part to his short term in office, 16 months, though he has been described as more of a forgettable president than a failed one. That's him right there. Mr. President Taylor there. He was born November 24th, 1874, plantation in Orange County, Virginia, prominent family, planters of English ancestry. Taylor was the fourth great-grandson of Elder William Brewster, a Pilgrim leader of the Plymouth colony, a Mayflower immigrant, and a signer of the Mayflower Compact, and the second great-grandson of Isaac Allerton, Jr., a colonial merchant, colonel, and the son of Mayflower Pilgrim Isaac Allerton and Fear Brewster, who was William Brewster's daughter. Taylor's second cousin through that line was James Madison, the fourth president. He was also a member of the famous Lee family of Virginia, a third cousin once removed of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. These people are all connected to each other. His family forsook its exhausted Virginia land, joined the westward migration, and settled near future Louisville, Kentucky, on the Ohio River. He grew up in a small woodland cabin until, with increased prosperity, his family moved to a brick house. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot here. Talks about his marriage and his children. Sarah Noxie Taylor, that was his daughter. She born in 1814. That was one of his daughters. She died in 1835. She married Jefferson Davis, that was the Confederate president, in 1835. Jefferson Davis was a subordinate officer at the time. She had met him through her father at the end of the Black Hawk War. She died at 21 of malaria in St. Francisville, Louisiana, 3 months after her marriage. Properties and slave holdings. He was a slave owner. Zachary Taylor. But publicly distanced himself from it. It's a little odd, huh? I got slaves, but we shouldn't promote slavery. It's a terrible thing, but I have over 200 slaves that I own. Anyway, that was probably a lot of people back then. The country was in the middle of a lot of change. In April 1842, Taylor bought the Cypress Grove plantation in Jefferson County, Mississippi, acquiring the 1,800 23-acre property and its 81 slaves for $95,000, equivalent to $3.1 million in 2024. By the time of his death in 1850, there were 127 slaves on the property, although the anti-slavery reporter reported at that time that Taylor owned at least 200 slaves. A little bit about his military career. He was in the War of 1812. He had command of a fort called Fort Howard. He fought in the Black Hawk War. During this period, during the Black Hawk War, that was 1828, 1832, that time frame, he opposed the courtship of his 17-year-old daughter, Sarah Knox Taylor, with Lieutenant Jefferson Davis, the future president of the Confederate States of America. He respected Davis, but did not wish his daughter to become a military wife, as he knew it was a hard life for families. Davis and Sarah Taylor married in June 1835 when she was 21, but she died 3 months later of malaria, contracted on a visit to Davis's sister's home in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Mosquito bite, that's how you got it. Second Seminole War, he fought there. That's where he earned his name, Old Rough and Ready. Then he fought in the Mexican-American War, really established a name for himself here back home. He was down on the Rio Grande, over into Mexico. Made his way back after a few years of doing that. Served in the Army for 38 years. And there's the election of 1848. This is where he was voted in as president, with Millard Fillmore as his vice president. He did not favor chartering another national bank, favored a low tariff, and believed that the president should play no role in making laws. Taylor did believe that the president could veto laws, but only when they were clearly unconstitutional. Many Southerners believed that Taylor supported slavery and its expansion into the new territory absorbed from Mexico, and some were angered when Taylor suggested that if elected president, he would not veto the Wilmot Proviso, which proposed against such an expansion. This position did not enhance his support from the activist anti-slavery elements in the northern United States, as they wanted Taylor to speak out strongly in support of the Proviso, not simply fail to veto it. Most abolitionists did not support Taylor since he was a slave owner. He repeatedly said he would not accept the party's presidential nomination, but he eventually did. He defeated Clay and Winfield Scott for the presidential nomination. Democrats were less unified than the Whigs. Such former Democrat President Martin Van Buren broke from the party and led the anti-slavery Free Soil Party's ticket. Van Buren won the support of many Democrats and Whigs who opposed the extension of slavery into the territories, but he took more votes from Democratic nominee Lewis Cass in the crucial state of New York, which helped Zachary Taylor win his nomination. Presidency was 1849 to 1850. He died 16 months in. Talks about his inauguration. His term as president began on Sunday, March 4th, but his inauguration was not held until the next day out of religious concerns. His inauguration speech discussed the many tasks facing the nation, but presented a governing style of deference to Congress and sectional compromise instead of assertive execution or assertive executive action. His speech also emphasized the importance of following President Washington's precedent and avoiding entangling alliances. He made time to meet with numerous office seekers and other ordinary citizens who desired his attention. He also attended an unusual number of funerals, including services for Polk and Dolly Madison. According to Eisenhower, Taylor coined the phrase First Lady in his eulogy for Madison. In the summer of 1849, Taylor toured the northeastern United States to familiarize himself with a region of which he had seen little. He spent much of the trip plagued by gastrointestinal illness and returned to Washington by September. It goes over some of the sectional crisis that was going on, and this was leading up to the Civil War, is what was happening, or going back and forth on slavery, anti-slavery. While a Southern slave owner himself, Taylor believed that slavery was economically infeasible in the Mexican cession, or the parts of the United States that were acquired from Mexico, and so opposed slavery in those territories as a needless source of controversy. His major goal was sectional peace, preserving the Union through legislative compromise. As the threat of Southern secession grew, he sided increasingly with anti-slavery Northerners such as Senator William H. Seward of New York, even suggesting that he would sign the Wilmot Proviso to ban slavery in federal territory should such a bill reach his desk. Talks about foreign affairs, compromise attempts in his final days. It says here, Taylor denied. Southern senators accused Taylor of secretly sending the U.S. Army to New Mexico. That was a militia, because Texas, so the crisis, tensions flared as Congress negotiated and secession talks grew, culminating with the threat from Taylor to send troops into New Mexico to protect its border from Texas, with himself leading the army. The crises escalated after delegates in New Mexico proposed a new state constitution that would have banned slavery, and Peter Hansborough Bell won the 1849 Texas gubernatorial election on a pledge to order a militia invasion of New Mexico. Southern senators accused Taylor of secretly sending the U.S. Army to New Mexico. Taylor denied the allegations, but emphasized that he would like to. He also said that anyone taken in rebellion against the Union, he would hang, with less reluctance than he had hanged deserters and spies in Mexico. And not mincing words there. On July 4th, this is about his death. On July 4th, 1850, Taylor reportedly consumed copious amounts of cherries and iced milk while attending holiday celebrations during a fundraising event at the Washington Monument, which was then under construction. Over the course of several days, he became severely ill with an unknown digestive ailment initially resembling acute gastroenteritis. Say that right? The illness initially seemed mild, and on the first day, Taylor felt well enough to continue working. His condition worsened thereafter. His army physician, Alexander S. Weatherspoon, diagnosed the illness as cholera morbus, a flexible mid-19th century term for intestinal ailments as diverse as diarrhea and dysentery, but not related to Asiatic cholera. The latter, a widespread epidemic prevalent in Washington, D.C. at the time of his death. The identity and source of Taylor's illness are the subject of historical speculation, although it is known that several of his cabinet members had come down with a similar illness. Fever ensued, and Taylor's chance of recovery was small. On July 8th, Taylor remarked to a medical attendant, "I should not be surprised if this were to terminate in my death. I did not expect to encounter what has beset me since my elevation to the presidency. God knows I have endeavored to fulfill what I conceive to be an honest duty, but I have been mistaken. My motives have been misconstrued and my feelings most grossly outraged." He died at 10:35 p.m., July 9th, 1850. He was 65 years old. After his death, Vice President Fillmore assumed the presidency, ended on 1854, blah, blah, or 1853. There were some theories that he was assassinated, that he had been poisoned. Almost immediately after his death, rumors began to circulate that Taylor had been poisoned by pro-slavery Southerners or Catholics. Okay. And similar theories persisted into the 21st century. A few weeks after Taylor's death, President Fillmore received a letter alleging that Taylor had been poisoned by a Jesuit lay official. In 1978, Hamilton Smith based his assassination theory. This is 1978. Hamilton Smith based his assassination theory on the timing of drugs, the lack of confirmed cholera outbreaks, and other material. Theories that Taylor had been murdered grew after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln in 1865. In 1881, John Bingham, well known for serving as the Judge Advocate General at the Lincoln assassination trial, wrote an editorial in the New York Times alleging that Jefferson Davis had poisoned Taylor. Okay. In the late 1980s, Clara Rising, a former professor at the University of Florida, persuaded Taylor's closest living relatives to agree on an exhumation so that his remains could be tested. The remains were exhumed and transported to the office of the Kentucky Chief Medical Examiner on June 17, 1991. Samples of hair, fingernail, and other tissues were removed, and radiological studies were conducted. The remains were returned to the cemetery and reinterred with appropriate honors in the mausoleum, which is where we got a video and a shot of that a while ago. Neutron activation analysis conducted at Oak Ridge National Laboratory revealed no evidence of poisoning, as arsenic levels were several hundred times lower than necessary. The analysis concluded Taylor had contracted cholera morbus or acute gastroenteritis, as Washington had open sewers and his food or drink may have been contaminated. Any potential for recovery was overwhelmed by his doctors, who treated him with ipecac, calomel, opium, and quinine at 40 grains per dose, approximately 2.6 grams, and bled and blistered him too. Great. A 2010 review concludes, there is no definitive proof that Taylor was assassinated, nor would it appear that there is definitive proof that he was not. So, yeah. He had decomposed to the point that they really couldn't determine anything. I think it's what I'd read later on in this article. They really couldn't tell anything, so it's possible that he was poisoned, but it's just as likely that he just came down with a strange illness. Hold on a second. I'll lay the phone down. I got plenty of papers back up. Anyway, we're here to play caps. A longer video than usual. I'm going to go to the center of the cemetery to play. We're going to walk over there. Get us out away from the homes that are back here. This is right up there. There's some. Hope you can see them over there. This cemetery is a little narrow, really. It's one of the. It's not the smallest one I've seen. I got videos from the smallest one. I forget where it's at, but I got videos up on my YouTube channel there somewhere. Anyway, this is one of these smaller ones, but we're gonna walk over here, try to get out in the middle, so we'll be in the center of this whole cemetery. We can play for everybody here, including the 12th president of the United States. Pretty cool, huh? Section H. A little walking. Then we're gonna get back on the road. I got 4.5 hours to drive still to get up to Toledo. But I didn't want to miss this chance to be here. The headstone right here at the base of this tree is separated from, well, I guess it's in this whole line. It just lays flat. I'm assuming this tree just, let's see, it says Jesse Theodore Taylor, Kentucky, STM-2, U.S. Navy, World War II. Born May 7th, 1914. Died March 30th, 1956. The tree was probably much smaller when he was buried here in 56, or I don't know if he's buried in 56, but whenever he's buried here, the tree just kind of grew around him, and it is the big oak tree. Not quite sure what the deal is. There's a lot of folks from Kentucky here. Odd. Might be because we're in Kentucky. The Bluegrass State. Pina. Wife of Sergeant V.R. Hayden, USA. All right. We got a 25-minute video going now. More Kentuckians. We're playing for the folks in Kentucky today. Yeah, I'm gonna get over here in the sun. You can see me better. I can see you better. Man, get the sun out of my face. Somebody else over there. Pull up in their van. All right. Yeah, I'll play where maybe get this tree behind me. I like to get big old trees in the videos where I can. Yeah, let's put the camera down over here. Now we're gonna get it all in one video. Got the tree in there. Yep. What's the headstone we're landing on? Who's here? Mary Lou, wife of Pete L.C. Clarence Kelsey. All right. Let's get this tap done, huh? Get it done so we can get out of here. Found my gloves. I thought I'd lost. I misplaced them, but they're in my gig bag. Yeah, I found my gloves. All right, Louisville, Kentucky. Playing for everybody buried at the Zachary Taylor National Cemetery. And we're playing for Zachary Taylor himself. 12th President of the United States. Might have been assassinated. Might have just died from some gastrointestinal illness. Who knows? But we're playing for him. He served honorably in the United States Army. Served down in Texas. Yes, sir. All the way from up here. I wound up back up here. Now this is where he lies at rest. So, here we go. Can you see if I'm in the screen or not? All right, I think I am. Here we go. And there we go. Somebody is at my doorbell at my house. I see the notification. I wonder who that could be. Probably my darling wife. Anyway, another TAPS mission completed successfully. And we'll get back on the road, get on up to Toledo, Ohio. Got a Air National Guard base to do there, just outside of Toledo. I'll install one of our emergency crash conferencing systems. All right, y'all. It's probably my last domestic trip once I'm done with this one, before we make the big trip over to Catherine, Northern Territory of Australia. That is my next trip. Got a Royal Australian Air Force base to go install one of our systems at, and that's in Catherine. That's up in the Northern Territory of Australia. Long flight over there. Yeah, we're leaving in the second week in December to make that trip. We'll be gone for about 2 weeks. And that pretty little wife of mine, she's going with me. She said, "You ain't going to Australia without me." NASA. So we were able to make it work. She's gonna go. All right, we out of here. We'll see y'all again soon. I'm gonna play in Australia too, by the way. Yeah, I'm gonna play. Got a cemetery I've already picked out. Don't know if there's any Americans buried there, but my goal is to go play last post at for some of the honored dead in Australia. So that's the next place that this bugle will be put into use. You're making a trip over with me. All right, we're 30 minutes in on this video. It's gonna be a long one. Longer than usual. I guess not. I usually make two. They're about 10-15 minutes each, so let's put them all together on one here. Hear that tree? It's a big one. All right, making the walk back to the car. Say goodbye to the president. See you later, Mr. President. Thank you for your service, sir. I see a squirrel over there. His tail flipping around. All right, put this. Bugle back here where I had it. All right, one more look back there. There's a mausoleum and there's the monument. And that's the whole Taylor family plot back there, the whole area. That is theirs. Whoop. I can get my hand on it. Get your hand on that door, son. All right. All right. No, don't open it again. Yeah, stupid door. One of these doors, if you cross by, hit those sensors, in front of those sensors, it opens for you. You know, in case you got your hands full of groceries. All right. Okay, y'all. It's been a good one. Thank y'all for joining me. We'll see y'all here in about 2 weeks. Bye.